Joining us now, Senator Bryce Reeves. He represents the Fredericksburg-Stanton area. Hey, Senator, great to have you with us, man.
Hey, it's good to be with you, John, and a lot of energy this morning, man. That's fantastic.
Look, they want you out. They want you out, Senator. You know, they don't even care. They think they're going to take the Senate, but you're their number one target after that. They want you out because they don't want to deal with you. They know you're a fighter. They know you're going to call them on all the crap they do, and they're spending a ton of money to get you out. How are you fighting back?
Well, we've got one hell of a ground game coming up. And I don't think people really understand. That's how we won the first time and beat a 28-year incumbent. We just have a great operations organization going on. And, you know, it's kind of our secret weapon that most people don't realize how organized and controlled and how we execute. I mean, you know, you're talking to a guy who's a former Army Ranger. Actions on the objective are everything. You know, you work your plan and plan your work, and you execute violently, you know, in operations like this. So you just go out and you close. And we're going to close. Despite all the 5-to-1 odds on the money and everything else, I've told people, I'll continue to tell people, this is the 17th district. You know, I know this district very, very well. I know mom-and-pop stores. I know, you know, I've coached a lot of these kids in football and in lacrosse and their parents, and I live here. I didn't just move into the district like my opponent from Charlottesville thinking that I'm going to run. And look, she's a prop-up puppet. I mean, that's the bottom line. Soros has given another, $350,000. She's gotten money from Bloomberg, all the outside big liberal organizations that are coming in trying to buy the elections and buy the state house this year so they can control redistricting, so they can ultimately control Congress. I mean, that's the big play here. But what they didn't realize is they got guys like me that are dug in, guys like Nick Freitas, you know, that are dug in. Despite, you know, all the mishaps in that and in the Freitas race, it's actually a good thing. You know, sometimes in the fog of war, mistakes happen, but the outcomes are phenomenal. And I think you're going to see a phenomenal outcome in Nick's race, which, you know, we have overlapping jurisdiction, and he and I are both, you know, teamed up and at the hip, and you know, people know what we're like. We don't beat around the bushes. We're straight shooters. We tell people, you know, what the situation is. I tell my constituents all the time, if you don't like what I'm doing, let me know, right? And we tell them what we're going to do, and then we do what we tell them we're going to do, you know. And I think people understand that. They appreciate that. I don't dance around the issues. I don't talk about, you know, I think Laufer was accusing me of ducking some of these forums. Well, I don't just stay at home. I'm not just, you know, have a leisure life. I work a full-time job. I work a full-time job as a senator. I got a full-time campaign. I got a full-time coaching job. You know, we got all these things going on, and I can't wait to debate her on the 29th. You know, we already got her talking about, just like Dick Sasslaw did, about when we're talking about what we do with the taxpayers' money. You know, Republicans decided to give it back to everybody. That's why they got $110 to $220 in October. Oh, she wants to use that for one of her social welfare programs again, you know, and we gave it back. And so, you know, we couldn't be polar opposites, John. I think you know that. The biggest thing we need Republican voters to get out to vote. And we do that, we win.
Senator, let me ask you this. I mean, Amy Laufer, first-time candidate, not really a powerful resume. It's not like she was a House of Delegates member or mayor or something of that nature. I mean, how is she raising millions and millions of dollars for a state Senate race?
Well, I think one thing she is she was the lead person. She started Emily's List here in Virginia. And for the listeners who don't know what Emily's List is, maybe I'll mention Delegate Kathy Tran. Delegate Kathy Tran carried the infanticide bill, you know, the one where the governor goes, the baby will be born,
right.
The baby will be kept comfortable, and then a discussion would ensue over coffee as the child dies, right? Well, that's Kathy Tran. That's one of her pride and joys of somebody she recruited and helped bring through that process. So I think she gets a lot of that through that. You know, I said it once. I think you even said on this show, she is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and that's why she won't answer hard questions, because the reality is if she's in office, and we saw it on the school board in Charlottesville, she's never seen a tax increase she didn't vote for. And she's going to bring her liberal agenda with her, and that's why she's running the campaign she's running, and why it's so important on the 29th that we expose more of that.
Why are Democrats now in Virginia just infatuated with killing babies in late terms? I mean, what is, like, why did they even bring that up? Why are they infatuated with it? For the life of me, I can't understand it. Abortion is legal in the country. We have Roe v. Wade. Why are they pushing the envelope on this to such an extent to infuriate and get in the face of Catholics who have kind of accepted Roe v. Wade, like me? We kind of accept it. And then you want to terminate the baby's life coming under the birth canal. What's the purpose of this?
Well, I think what you have here is a systematic kind of outdoing each other. You know, New York passed a law. Everybody wants to move farther, and farther left. Like, oh, well, you did that. Well, we're going to take it a step further. That's the only way I can explain it. It's not. This isn't a women's health care issue. It's far from that, especially when you talk about it. There was a Marist poll done, 6 months ago that said 75% of Americans believe there should be some form of restrictions on abortion, right? And I think Roe versus Wade kind of exemplifies that. And I think the Supreme Court did the best they could do on a very contentious issue by breaking it up by trimesters and such, right? So regardless of where you stand on the issue, they've moved to the point of not just that, but, when did we get into eugenics? So, we always talk about what I talked about, the least and the last and the lost among us. When is a kid with a cleft lip no longer wanted in this society? When is, an autistic kid, because we have all these great medical tests and everything else to determine really, what this kid's going to look like, what sex, all these different things. So if they can do all that, so we're going to terminate these children that maybe aren't perfect per se, because we don't want them. I'm going to tell you something, John. This hits home for me because we got a kid that plays on our lacrosse team, and he's a special needs kid. And as a coach, it's challenging because he is not truly up to the same level as my son or maybe some of these other boys that are playing on this varsity team. But you know what? Aaron is a rallying cry for that whole team. When they put that in and he makes a great play, let me tell you something. He brings value. He brings worth to that team. He motivates that team because we know he's playing kind of handicapped there. And it's incredible to watch the excitement in his face and his eyes and when he voices that. And every life has tremendous human potential. And I think that's what people lose. I think that's what the left has lost in trying to outdo each other with all these crazy bills. And not just that. I mean, when you talk about real stuff like right to work and minimum wage, sure, we can have that discussion, but to just throw it down there without really figuring out what that, income really needs to be based, there's a lot of other things that have to change for that. If you just mandate it, you're going to put people out of business. You're going to, you can look at the data that shows it. I mean, some things just don't make sense. I don't know why they're pushing that kind of agenda, but if we don't win and hold the chambers, that bill is coming through, plus a bunch of other ones. And that's going to be the reality that Virginia will be in. And I refuse to go down, without a fight. We're going to close this thing out. This race in our district will be closed because the money has made it close, not because the candidate's some great candidate. Quite frankly, I don't think she's worthy to be in the ring, but that's a whole nother story.
The crazies are at the gate. They got a lot of money that's pouring in from out of state in order to perpetuate and go forward with a very liberal left-wing crackpot agenda. You got the same thing going on in the House. And Laufer definitely fits that category. She would be definitely one of the cheerleaders for Caucus of the Corn, the communist Lee Carter, hashtag Commie Lee in Prince William County, Manassas. I mean, you got Mark Levine in Northern Virginia who has got bills calling for the physical confiscation of weapons. I mean, all this stuff is out there. Nobody wants to talk about it because they want to hide it behind the money they're getting from Michael Bills and others and his wife Sonia trying to buy this election, and it's a lot of nonsense. Here's a text from Jeremy in Chesapeake. He says, "Hooray, brother, Rangers lead the way." So you got one of your Ranger buddies there cheering you on. Let's get Bryce Reeves, let's get here to brass tacks. I don't think you guys are going to hold the Senate. I think you got maybe an outside chance, but I don't think you're going to hold a Senate. Why is it, based on that, and I'm just being candid, okay? I don't think you guys are going to hold it. But why do we need you in the Senate if you're going to be in the minority? If they have a 21-19 majority or 22-18 majority, what's the difference?
Well, let me say this. If you're in the minority, you still have two jobs to do. One is to hold the majority accountable, and there's nobody that's going to hold the majority accountable better than me. And the second thing is, I don't care if I'm in the majority or the minority. I will still get things done. Mm-hmm. Look, John, last year I got foster care reform done, along with a couple of colleagues on the other side of the aisle, Monty Mason down by Williamsburg area, and I worked with Janet Howe to help get the funds needed to do the reforms for the omnibus foster care reform. And look, it was 140 people signed on to every member signed on the bill, even Communist Lee Carter signed on to the bill because it's the right thing to do. So when you work on issues that don't have a partisan spin to it, and you have a leader that understands how to do it and communicate effectively through and bring the two chambers, bring the parties together to focus on the issue and not on the politics of the issue, then you can get things done. Look at health care, John. I got a bill signed or passed. The Virginia Senate 40-0. There's only 40 senators. Went through the House. I forget the number, but bipartisan. And this would really reform health care. Went to the governor's desk. He made it political. He vetoed it 2 years in a row. It's the right thing to do by the people in my district. The senators all thought that. Every Democrat senator thought that. And the majority of those in the House all thought about it, too. So it didn't matter I was in the majority, right? Because the governor still outranked us all because he vetoed the thing. So on the right issues, it just takes leadership to lead and bring people together. And despite some of the hardcore issues that sometimes divide us, it's that leader that focuses on the 80% that unites us, right, and gets things done. So I don't need a majority to do that.
Right.
I just need the opportunity to do it. And unless I'm on the field, I can't play the game. And I want to play the game, so I've got to win re-election.
All right. Listen, let me ask you another question. The impeachment ruse that is going on right now, a lot of us think it is a witch hunt simply because of the fact that none of it is transparent. I had Rob Whitman, who's your congressman in your district, on the other day.
Great guy.
Ranking member of the subcommittee on sea power readiness. He couldn't even read the deposition. They locked him out of the secure area. This guy's a ranking member of the Navy jurisdiction, okay? They locked him out. He couldn't even read the deposition. He says, how can I even make a decision on any of this without being able to see the evidence? They locked him out, all in the dark. Then they just leak out the nuggets they want. How is that going to affect the election in Virginia in 2 weeks?
I hope it does affect the election in 2 weeks. The reason is there are a lot of what I call presidential voters out there that just don't pay attention to off-year elections or to local elections. I think if they'll pay attention, they'll listen for once, that it's really important because where Virginia kind of goes this year is kind of a catalyst for where everything's going to go in 2020. And I think if you take away all the minutia and all the noise, the white noise that I call it, and you actually start looking at facts, it's been nothing but a witch hunt since the very beginning. Collusion didn't work out for them. They go to the next big thing. And, it's just kind of ridiculous. And I think the majority of Americans, at least the majority of Virginians, when I go knock their doors, they are so sick of politics in Washington from both parties. They just want to flush it all and get a restart because they just are like, they don't do anything anymore. Now, I will shine a little light in this thing. Remember that bill, I think last time I talked to you, House Bill 886 that Charlie Crist is carrying for us. I think that's going to get signed by the president. It's making its way through, and I think it'll be signed before November that sets up a federal veterans treatment court nationally so we can finally start helping more of our veterans. I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled that we're actually, despite all this other stuff that's going on, working this thing through the system up there, which is some people are like, how are you doing that? And it's perseverance, and getting the right people to take our appointments. So we're thrilled about that.
What is your reaction to your colleague, David Sertaloin, Southwest Virginia, who signed the I'll take no money from Dominion pledge, and then he signed the clean energy dark money Michael Bills pledge? And they said basically, if you sign this pledge and don't take money from the public utility, we will give you money. And so he did everything they said.
$20,000.
Yeah, and $20,000. And he's voted.
Is that quid? Wait, John, is that quid pro quo?
That's what I'm asking. Is that, first of all, is what they're doing quid pro quo? You sign the pledge to get the $20,000. And secondly, if it's about clean energy and not taking money from Dominion, and Söderlein votes their way and doesn't take money from Dominion, why didn't they give him the $20,000?
Well, I think one, because he got snookered, right? But the other part of it is we've done a lot of homework on my opponent. My opponent's probably gotten $100,000 or more from Michael Bills. We've said it all along. She claims that because we've taken money from Dominion. Look, I take money from all kinds of different folks. It doesn't sway how I vote. I'm going to vote the right way regardless of what, anybody says, right? It just doesn't, you got to have utility companies. And so, but if you look at Michael Bill's history, he was a hedge fund guy, and he's highly invested, right? He's highly invested in new energy. So he doesn't want competition, so he's trying to drive his competition out, right? Or at least give him a black eye so he can make more money where he is. And he threw this out, and I forget, it's somewhere. If people want to Google it, Michael Bill's statement on paying delegates and senators $20,000 not to take Dominion money. And so I'm wondering if there is a big cabal here, and that is quid pro quo, because basically he's saying if you take it, then you vote for me, then I'm going to give you $20,000.
Well, one, there's quid pro quo, Senator Reeves, and second, it has nothing to do with clean energy. It has everything to do with the liberal, left-wing, crackpot Democrat agenda, because when David Söderlein asked for the money, he didn't get it, and the only difference between Söderlein and everybody else is he's a Republican. So the whole thing is a fraud. I'm out of time. John Fredericks Radio Network. Senator Reeves, people want info on your campaign. Where do they go?
BryceReeves.com, or just Google Bryce Reeves. There's enough out there to fill you up for a couple of days.
All right. We're going to have you back next week, Senator Bryce Reeves. Go to BryceReeves.com.